I was just kind of disappointed to see in some of these videos that some of these expenses were left out, you know, and then things like $100 a month for food, and then they're eating hot dogs and top ramen and stuff, and it's just you know, I kid you not.
Well,
I kid you not. I mean, when we do things like this, you see in our videos, we're always putting food on there, and we just take a totally different approach, a different tact, one of abundance, and part of that could be because we've done this as a family, and when you have a family involved, you don't feed your kids top ramen, you shouldn't, or hot dogs. So, and I mean, I wouldn't feed myself that, but you know, it's like right here, right? You see these dunes? These dune grass? And I've been in places, and you know where they are, where they got signs, stay off the dunes, and they got, you know, police patrolling it to make sure you stay off the dunes. And if somebody doesn't stay off the dunes, why, they're in big trouble, you know, to get ticketed and all this stuff like that. And here, there's none of that. And the dunes are still here. The grass is still here. You don't see these mobs of people trampling the dunes, although I'm sure occasionally there's a thoughtless person that tramples through the dunes, although I haven't seen it. But I'm sure it happens. And it's just something to think about. So there's a big misconception that in order to live on the smaller means, whatever that may mean, and you know, it could be $1,000, could be $1,500, and there's a lot of videos that you can't really do it well, and in order to do it well, you have to go abroad. And there is some truth to that. I mean, in this video, we're going to clear up some of the misconceptions that a lot of people have. Well, one of the things is there's a proliferation of videos, and we've made some that said family of 5 living on $1,000 in Cuenca, Ecuador. We did make that video. And yeah, and I'm not saying that it would cost more to live in the States for 5 people. But now that there's a big proliferation of videos about living well under the poverty line and living well on, you know, just a small amount of money, I think it's time to clear up some of the misconceptions that some of these videos put forward. I love to watch these videos. I like making the videos, and I like watching the videos. But it's kind of a turnoff when you see these kinds of videos, when you see somebody that lists their expenses, for example, and is living on less than $1,000 a month, but then they don't include the cost of maintenance for a vehicle. For example, they have a very, very low vehicle expense, you know, and I mean, of course, you would have to own your own house. But one of the big things that is definitely lower, but not always lower, in many cases not lower, is if somebody that doesn't want to own property, it's possible, as you know, to rent at very, very low cost. Now, you know, we used to say we've been abroad 10 years and have never paid more than $300 or $400 for 3- and 4-bedroom houses and apartments, furnished and unfurnished. What a mouthful. You know, that's been the case. So, but what we find is that a lot of the people that go abroad, as well-intentioned as they are, unfortunately run across people that aren't, you know, from higher cost of living areas that aren't looking to live on that level. And so it becomes a bit of a challenge in the long run. So then the question is, like somebody said on one of our videos, you have to make a plan for retirement on small means, otherwise you just won't have anything at all. And that's the whole conundrum, is that people think that it's all or nothing. You either have to, you know, go all the way with the idea that you know, all of the misconceptions, which we've made a different video about retirement, that people think that they'll never work another day in their life, and I'm sure some people won't, because they've already worked too many days in their lives, you know. You know, and when I say work, I mean not the general sense of work. I do believe we are designed to do a certain amount of work every day. When I say work, I mean work that people don't like, people would rather not be doing, that saps your life energy, requires too much of your existence, and doesn't really give you the satisfaction of having a balanced life. So when I use the word work, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, the general idea of work in a balanced scenario is one where it's just a much smaller portion of one's day. So the ideal scenario would be to have different activities that you aren't really work, but that are in some way making your life just easier. And so you can have multiple activities that you're actually enjoying, that each one makes your life, it just makes you happy in one way or another, as opposed to the other side of that story. So we're talking about, like, when you watch these videos and you see, where to live on $1,000 a month. And this is kind of a conundrum for me. It's a pet peeve, because we've been in so many places that we've never paid more than $300 or $400 for 3 and 4 bedroom houses and all that. So I'm saying that it wasn't necessarily just this one particular place. It wasn't ever like this place where everybody was going, initially it was in the beginning, but once you get accustomed to dealing with foreign cultures, because if you've never been abroad, that's the main thing, is there's that hesitancy, and that, I guess you could call it a kind of fear, a kind of fear of failure, maybe, when you very, very, very first do something you've never done before. But, you can get over that pretty quickly, especially if you've chosen to be surrounded by the type of culture that you don't fear. And that's one of the things I've said, is that if you're in fear in a culture and you have to huddle around, other foreigners because you feel that you have to, not because that you can't, or that you shouldn't, but that you feel that you have to, and because you're in fear of the local culture. And so we're saying that you probably need to do better at choosing the culture that you're surrounded by, so that you don't live in that fear. So blending in becomes a top issue. So we've seen videos where people say go here to live on $1,000 a month abroad, and like you have to go abroad to do it. But there are people on the internet that are doing this in USA, and just like in the videos abroad, that there's always something that is being left out, and there's always the other side of the story. And we've cataloged that as far as living abroad extensively on our videos. But I was sorry to see it in some of the US-based videos, in the sense that you would see the listed expenses there, and they all look good, but then you realize that the amortization, for example, when I said that I spent $100 a month or less, say between $75 a month and $100 a month owning a vehicle, well, that's a total cost. That's a comprehensive total cost. That's not just the gas, and you see the gas, or maybe the gas and the insurance if it's required. So like when I include a cost, it includes like the amortization, which is basically the cost of the vehicle, which is divided by the number of years that you're expecting or hopeful that it will last. And that, and that's one of those things that everything is symbiotic, because I know if I'm driving the car once or twice a week, it is going to last way longer than somebody that has to commute to a 9 to 5 every day, twice a day, for hours and hours. That car is not really going to last, and that creates a situation where people have to spend a lot more on their transportation, and maybe even feel like they need to go into debt and this kind of thing. So you see that in these videos, these kinds of thoughtful, comprehensive bottom line expenses aren't really addressed, and you see these budgets that are $800, $900 and this kind of thing, and unfortunately they leave out important things like vehicle amortization and even maintenance for a vehicle. I know that over the years I did buy brand new vehicles way back in the day, but once I realized what a mistake that was because of the loss of depreciation that occurs immediately, then I've always owned vehicles where their depreciation was mostly already tapped out, which means that even if the car blows up, you won't lose anything. You won't lose all of that, the complete cost. There's a sweet spot there for that. But anyway, I was just kind of disappointed to see in some of these videos that some of these expenses were left out, you know, and then things like $100 a month for food, and then they're eating hot dogs and Top Ramen and stuff, and it's just, you know, I kid you not.
Well,
I kid you not. I mean, when we do things like this, you see in our videos, we're always putting food on there, and we just take a totally different approach, a different tact, one of abundance, and part of that could be because we've done this as a family, and when you have a family involved, you don't feed your kids Top Ramen, you shouldn't, or hot dogs. So, and I mean, I wouldn't feed myself that, but I hope you know what I mean. I'm just saying that when you have a family, you have to be a good provider and think more in abundant terms.
And healthy food, like
healthy food. Healthy food is
and vegetables.
Yeah, you have to stay healthy so that you don't need to be dependent on other people, third parties, for some sort of health care, unless it's some kind of an accident or emergency, obviously. And so, living on $1,000 a month abroad, or even living on $1,000 a month in the U.S., it's both doable. But in the U.S., you're going to need to own the property. You're going to have to get smart about your transportation and your food and those major expenses. And so that's the idea, I think, that's appealing to people, is that they don't have to make any effort, and they can just go abroad and, well, I don't have to make any effort. I can just move over here, pack my bags, and then I can just live on $1,000 a month, which is $1,000 just seems to be an arbitrary figure that people like just because it's a round number. I mean, it could be 1,100, it could be 1,200, it could be 960. It's just a roundabout figure. Somewhere around there. And so it absolutely can be done in the U.S. by owning maybe a smaller property, going to a lower cost of living. But see, there's the challenge in this kind of conversation, because the minute you start saying things like that, it's like, well, I don't have to have a smaller property. I can live like a king when I go abroad, and I don't have to have a small. But that's the problem. Once you start thinking like that, and I think that a lot of people get misled, and they are made to feel as if they're going to go abroad and live like a king on that $1,000 a month. And I think that you can do it both in the States and abroad, if you make an effort out of it. But most people that do that end up way overpaying and having to compete with high cost of living people. And pretty soon the rents get to be, like around here in Mexico, they get to be $700, $800, $1,000, $1,200, $1,500. I mean, it's ridiculous. I've talked about that before, how that equals the income of a upper middle class salary in these places. So the bottom line is that if you really want to live well, it can be done. There are people that are doing it in the U.S., and there's people that are doing it. We were doing it, and we are doing it, abroad, and we are also doing it in the States. Again, in the States, you're going to want to own property. Renting is probably not going to be an option. It just depends on what level. There are low cost of living areas in the U.S. where you could rent, but you might want to live there. You might not. It might be maybe out in the Midwest where it snows and a lot and that kind of thing. So the bottom line of this video is that if you want to do this, you can do it regardless of where you're at. You can do it at home, you can do it abroad. There isn't a mandatory way you've got to do it like this and do it the way people are saying that you have to do it. If you search high and low, you will find, especially nowadays, there's lots and lots, maybe too many, of people on social media talking about how to make the best of living on a lot less money and having a much more balanced life, and as we say, simple life. All right, hope you got something out of that. Thanks for coming to the channel. Have a nice day.